And you are live now, Chair.
Thank you, Claire. Good evening and welcome to this Performance Governance and Audit Committee meeting on 20th of February 2025. My name is Councillor Nick Spenceley and I shall be chairing tonight. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table, as this could create interference with the cameras and live stream. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. We do not have any fire alarm testing scheduled for today. If you hear the alarm, please exit using either of the two marked fire escape routes. Once out of the building, please proceed to the designated muster point located on the grass verge by the police station entrance. And do we have any apologies for absence, please, Claire?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Battinger, Councillor Siddle-Norman and Councillor Stamp, and I understand Councillor Morgan is substituting for Councillor Miller.
Thank you. So, item 3 minutes of the last meeting.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, it's Councillor Morgan isn't here. He can't substitute for Councillor Miller. Councillor Miller has left the authority.
That's a very good point, Councillor Thompson. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Yes. Right, item 3 minutes of the last meeting. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on 16th of January 2025, found on pages 5 to 34, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stilts. Are there any items of accuracy? In which case we'll move straight to agreement by assent. Agreed? Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware, should the need arise through the meeting. Thank you very much. Item 5, I assume there is no public participation. So,
that's correct, Chairman.
Thank you. So, we move to item 7, which is the report of the external auditor on the audit of the financial year 2023-2024, pages 39 to 130. And Mr. Cookson, you have written a short report, and then I assume you can hand over to our auditor colleagues. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. I'm here to present to you the report, the external auditor on the audit of the financial year 23-24. So as you can see in the report, the purpose of this report is to present to you the International Standards on Auditing ISA 260 audit report, which is Appendix 1, and the annual audit report, which is Appendix 2 for the financial year 23-24. The key findings and recommendations from the reports will be presented by the external auditor, KPMG. We are joined on the call by Sarah Ahmed and Jessica Hargreaves, who will be presenting their report shortly. And also we've got the audit plan report as well for 23-24, which is Appendix 3. Just to clarify, the audit report does normally get presented before the start of the audit, but due to the issues nationally with audits, everything is bunched up, so to speak. So the audit plan report is actually being presented at this time. So yes, I will pass this over to Jessica and Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as you've said, there are 3 reports from us in the pack. If I may, can I start with Appendix 3, which is on page 99 of the pack, which is our 23-24 external audit plan. Just to talk you through our high-level plan of the external audit. So on page 101 of the pack, that's page 3 of the report, we've highlighted our approach to materiality for the audit. We based materiality on 2% of the council's forecast expenditure for the financial year, which led us to a materiality level of £633,000. So any audit differences that were identified above this level would have been required to have been amended within the financial statements. We set what we call our audit misstatement posting threshold at £31,600. So any audit differences identified above that value would be reported to members of the committee. On page 103 of the pack, page 5 of our report, we've outlined the significant risk areas for our 23-24 external audit. These have been identified following our planning and risk assessment work, our inquiries with the council, as well as our knowledge of the wider local government sector. So we identified 3 significant risk areas for this year's audit. The first being the valuation of land and buildings, and that is due to the high volume of estimation and assumptions that underpin the valuation, as well as those assets being the largest value on the council's within the council's financial statements. We then identified a significant risk with regards to the management override of controls. Now, this is a significant risk we're required to recognise on all external audits, regardless of the sector. And our work here really focuses around the potential for manipulation of the financial statements, particularly through what we call journal entries. And the third significant risk area we identified was in relation to the valuation of the LGPS pension scheme. Again, we identify this as a significant risk area due to, again, the volume of estimation and assumptions underpinning that those figures within the financial statements. So these are the 3 key areas of our audit, but we do still undertake audit procedures over all material balances within the financial statements. So I'll pause there. As Mr. Cookson has identified, we would normally bring the audit plan through to an earlier audit committee. However, we weren't able to commence our planning procedures until December 2024. Hence, this is the next audit committee that we were able to bring that plan to. We then concurrently went into our year-end financial statements audit, which I can talk through unless there are any specific questions around the external audit plan.
Any questions? Councillor Stilts.
Can I just ask, could you quote me that figure again on page 101?
Page 101. So our materiality figures was set at £633,000. And
Okay.
our audit.
That's fine, thank you. I heard you wrong the first time.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would you like to continue? Thank you.
Go back to Appendix 1 of the report, so that's page 43 of the pack. And if I just take you onto page 4 of that report, which is 46 of the pack. So as members of the committee may be aware, a national backstop date was implemented within the local government sector to try and ensure that we get the delivery of external audits back in line with national timetable. As a result of this, all local government external audits are required to have completed their 23-24 financial year end by the 28th of February. Due to the timing of the completion of the previous external audit for the 22-23 financial year, as well as due to a number of changes within the financial team at the council, we haven't been able to progress significant volumes of external audit work. So what we have completed is all of our risk assessment and planning work that we have required to issue an audit opinion. We've completed what we call our disclosure checklist, where we ensure the disclosures of the financial statements are in line with the code of practice. And we've completed basic casting and consistency checks of the financial statements. So in summary, we will therefore be issuing a disclaimed audit opinion on the 23-24 financial statements. And on this page 46 of the pack, we just outline the rationale behind that. as well. We have, however, fully completed our value for money risk assessment and audit procedures for the 23-24 financial year. And based on the work that we have completed, we have identified a significant weakness in respect to the council's arrangements with regards to value for money. And that is outlined on page 53 of the document, which is page 11 of the pack. And further details around the significant weakness are included in the second document, appendix 2 of the full pack. Now, the rationale for the significant weakness is in respect to both the council's late delivery of the draft 23-24 financial statements. It's considering the findings of previous external audits, and where a large volume of control deficiencies have been identified in relation to the financial statements processes. And in addition, it's due to we haven't been able to progress our 23-24 external audit in line with how we would have liked, due to what we believe to have been constraints within the finance team within the council. Now, when we assess our value for money arrangements, we are specifically looking at the arrangements in place from the 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024. Now, we are aware that there have been a number of changes within the finance team since this date, and action has been taken already in relation to some of the areas where we did identify weaknesses. But we do believe that during the financial year under review, there were constraints which has led us to the judgment of there being a significant weakness. The final document in the pack, Appendix 2, this is what is called the Auditor's Annual Report. Now, this document is required to be published alongside the Council's financial statements on its website. This provides a high-level overview of the findings of both our financial statements audit, and it provides more rationale and detailed assessment of the findings from our value for money work. So in relation to the significant weakness that I mentioned, we have raised a recommendation in response to that weakness, which is on page 96 of the pack, and included is management's response to that. Now, I will just highlight here that within the original pack that we issued, the reports were in their draft form. Since we've issued those, management has provided further information and clarification, and we have issued an amended version of this document, but ultimately it still has the same key finding around the significant weakness. So I'll pause there and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Mr. Smith.
Yes, in looking at 2024, and thank you for going through that, by the way, do we have any feel for the value of fully depreciated assets within that year?
In terms of the volume
Well, the actual value, that were they not fully depreciated, what would have been the charge to your, if you like, your surplus or deficit account? Have we got any idea?
I'm afraid we haven't undertaken procedures to be able to provide you with that to give you a concrete answer in response to that. Then I don't know if you've got a feeling.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, would you be able to just repeat the question for me,
I was
please?
just trying to get some sense as to what the value of fully depreciated assets are within the 24 accounts, because clearly if they're fully depreciated and there is no depreciation charge, that would have the effect of improving your surplus or deficit.
So I have not prepared the financial statements. We have a technical accountant who prepares the financial statements. So I can certainly come back to you with a written response to that question.
So we'll have a written response to that. Thank you, Mr. Cookson. Any other questions? Right, thank you, Ms Hargreaves and Ms Ahmed. So the recommendations can be found on page 39. Recommendation 1, that members consider the ISA 260 audit report for 23-24 Appendix 1. The ISA 260 report aims to ensure that auditors communicate significant findings from the audit to those responsible for governance, such as the Board of Directors Audit Committee. 2, that members consider the Annual Audit Report for 23-24 Appendix 2. This report evaluates how effectively an organisation uses its resources to achieve its objectives. 3, that members consider the Audit Plan Report for 23-24 at Appendix 3. This report sets out the plan for the accounts audit. 4, that members delegate authority to both the Chairperson of the Performance, Governance and Audit Committee and Chief Finance Officer, Section 151, to liaise directly with the external auditors, KPMG, to facilitate the signing of the accounts and its subsequent publication online. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pratt, can we take this by assent? Agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, so we now move on to item 8, Internal Audit Report, pages 131 to 132. And again, I'll hand over to Mr. Cookson initially.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I believe this one will be going straight over to Mr. Billingham.
Oh, right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So our first report is the progress report on page 133. This gives our kind of usual kind of update on the completion of the internal audit plan. We've completed 3 further reviews since the last PGA committee. They are on capital and commercial project management, health and wellbeing and contract management. 2 further audits on GDPR and business continuity and disaster recovery are at draft report stage. And fieldwork is ongoing for the remaining 3 audits on building control, asset management and main financial systems. All 3 of these audits will be completed by the end of the financial year. The next report is the follow-up report on page 145. So there isn't really much to report here as no recommendations had reached their implementation date, so there was nothing to follow up. The outstanding recommendations on licensing and management of property will become due and followed up before the next PGA committee. The fact that there's nothing to follow up, I think, shows that the follow-up situation is in a good state. Then we go on to our next audit. Oh no, sorry. Do you want me to take any questions on those reports, or should I carry on through and take questions at the end?
I think carry on and take questions at the end. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. So the next report is the capital and commercial project management one, which is on page 153. So this has received a substantial opinion for the design of controls and a moderate opinion for the effectiveness of controls. And we've raised 3 recommendations around ensuring the business case templates are completed in all cases and updating project management guidance, asset management strategy and commercial strategy. The next report is the contract management report, which is on page 175. This again had another positive outcome and received a substantial opinion for the design of controls and moderate opinion for the effectiveness of controls. This time there are only 2 recommendations raised. So one was around ensuring contract managers receive the correct training and establishing a quality assurance process. And the second was about updating contract management guidance. The final report is the health and wellbeing report on page 189. And this received substantial assurance of both the design and operational effectiveness of controls, with just 2 low priority recommendations raised, and they are about ensuring actions resulting from the staff survey are smart and improving the governance arrangements for the council's mind, body and soul group. I'm happy to take any questions on those reports before I pass on to Aaron to go through the draft internal audit plan for 25-26.
Thank you, Mr. Billingham. Any questions? No, I think you've stunned us with the clarity of the report. So on to Aaron.
Thank you, Chair. So our final report in the pack is our proposed internal audit plan for 25-26. So this plan has been collated following our normal annual planning process, which includes a review of council plans, strategies, priorities, alongside the wider landscape that you're operating in, a number of discussions with management, review of risk registers and particularly the strategic risk register, and then ultimately a proposed plan went to CLT for discussion and collaboration, which has then arrived here for you to review and approve. The plan is set out on pages 213 to 214, and we've listed 9 reviews that we will undertake next year. There's a mix of cyclical coverage as well as looking at some specific areas of potential risk and obviously ongoing involvement, i.e. IT, for example. As ever, it does remain flexible, so therefore if there are emerging risks that arise that we need to discuss with management, we can then obviously propose any amendments to the plan. We will bring that back to the committee if that does happen. And then finally, what makes this document quite elongated and long is our Appendix 1, which is our Internal Audit Charter. So this outlines our purpose, our role and the responsibilities of all stakeholders, which includes management and this committee. The reason why I'm flagging this is that from the beginning of January, there was new global internal audit standards that become applicable across the entire world. To date, we have been performing our work to the UK public sector internal audit standards. Those new global standards are actually bringing other sectors and the rest of the world up to UK standards in effect. So what's happened as a result is that there are a new set of UK public sector internal audit standards which are applicable from the 1st of April 25. So this plan will be delivered in conformance with those standards. I will give the assurance to the committee that there are not significant changes for us, and as your outsourced internal audit function, we've already reviewed our processes and are confident that they comply, and as part of our reporting throughout the year and especially at year end, we'll obviously report our conformance against those. I'm obviously happy to take any questions on the plan or those standards, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Windsor. Any questions? Councillor Pratt.
I've got a couple, if I may, Chair. Devolution and LGR is in all of our minds, and here we are talking about 2 audits over the next 2 or 3 years when things are going to dramatically change, although we're having to plan, we don't know how. How agile will this internal audit exercise be if the rules change and our responsibilities change, is my first question. The other question is about building control and planning. We've recently had a letter saying they're really struggling. Will the audit take into consideration how difficult it is to recruit staff, especially during such a fluid amount of time? Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you.
So taking your first question about the fluidity and agile nature of our plan, definitely. Obviously, we know that there is uncertain times potentially ahead, and therefore if that change does create risk, naturally as a function that's driven by risk, we would have to respond to that. So we would always take stock of our plan, obviously as part of our quarterly reporting to yourselves and discussions regularly with management. We're always reflecting on if there are new risks. So as a statutory requirement to give you a head of internal audit plan, we have to ensure that it's aligned to those risks. On the second question, so obviously we're currently doing the building control audit, and that's been managed, that has been scoped alongside management. So those concerns and the challenges that are being faced have been built into the background of that review. Obviously, as a function, and natural, we wouldn't naturally just say you need more resource, etc. There is a vacancy, but we recognise that if that is a root cause for a reason why potentially there might be a backlog, or if there are any concerns around the delivery of the processes. So we always reflect on that, and as you can see, our reporting is quite balanced, so therefore we would take into account, obviously we can't help the organisation with improving any recruitment, but we would recognise that, definitely.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Mr. Smith?
I wasn't certain where to raise this, but I think it's allied to the previous question. Clearly everything's uncertain, and I just don't know if Maldon District Council knows what its preferences are in terms of what's probable to happen. We know we're going to be merged with other organisations, but we don't know their strengths or weaknesses, I assume. We don't know what's going to happen, for example, on reserves. Should we be doing something on that? We don't know if we're going to get a hospital pass. Should we be doing some form of research to investigate the possible alignments that we'll face as we are at the moment? And I don't know, we may have done this already, but it's just, it strikes me, we know we're going to go in a number of directions, and I just don't know if those organisations are good, bad or indifferent, whether or not, I mean, at the moment, I mean, I ought to own up to being an ex-auditor, so I have a bit of a cross to bear, like lots of people, but I think generally we're clean on external and internal audit. But if we end up with an organisation who have a different view, what do we do then?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And it's a question that is exercising all of us. We're in the perhaps fortunate position of having reserves, which in Jane Austen terms makes us a gentleman of good fortune who may be attractive. But I think Mr. Dodson will answer that more fully.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, there's a number of pieces of work that are currently underway, both internally and working across Essex as a county. The Essex Chief Execs and Leaders Group has commissioned work through external consultants to look at the various financial issues and the options around which councils may come together and how many unitary authorities, etc. And a full paper on that will be presented to council at an extraordinary meeting of council on the 26th of February, 25th February, to look at that work and to ensure that members have a full oversight of that analysis that's been undertaken to date. Members should also note that within the audit plan, there is a preparedness for local government review audit that's included to ensure that as we go into the planning, most of that work is high level at the moment. There'll then be a submission collectively by Essex authorities for the sort of high level proposals for unitaries that will go in March, and further work to be undertaken to September, at which time a more detailed submission will be made to government that will include lots more detail around finances, reserves, how that's all dealt with collectively, and also how the geographic cohesion of those unitaries is together. So at some point within that, we will go through the audit and the checklist to make sure that we're undertaking the due diligence required for that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dodson.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I shall read out the recommendations, which can be found on page 131. That the committee considers, comments and approves the following. 1. Progress Report 24-25, February 25 at 8A. 2. Follow-up of Recommendations Report, February 25 at 8B. 3. Capital and Commercial Project Management Final Report, January 25 at 8C. 4. Contract Management Final Report, January 25 8D. 5. Health and Wellbeing Final Report, January 25 8E. 6. Internal Audit Annual Plan 25-26 and Strategic Plan 23-26 8F. Do I have a seconder? Ooh, close. Councillor Stilts. And agreed by assent? Agreed? Thank you very much. And I know Councillor Stamp would want me to express my thanks both to the auditors for their work during the year and to our hard-working finance team, and in particular Mr. Cookson. I don't want to embarrass him, but notwithstanding the issues raised, Mr. Cookson has, I was going to say manfully, which I'm probably not allowed to say, has triumphed in adversity and delivered us some very clear reports and coordinated his team. So thank you very much, Mr. Cookson. Well done. Right, okay, so item 9, corporate performance. Now, the CEO, Mr. Wilkinson, is, I believe, at a conference in York. Is he online, Claire? I don't think he is. So it'll be Mr. Dodson.
No, he's not.
No, so I'll ask Mr. Dodson to present. Or is it...
It's going to be me.
Ah, sorry, Chair. It's Ms. Hughes. Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
So this report covers October to December 2024 for our corporate plan priorities and their delivery. Section 3.2 of the covering report gives a high-level view by priority and shows you delivery progress, and also shows the specific indicators within the priority that have been marked as at risk. Appendix 1, which is then found from page 233 of your agenda pack, gives the full data and breakdown. Specifically, page 233 also has the overview of the number of indicators and their current status within each of the priorities. It should be noted that a new corporate plan was adopted in December, and as such, this is the last reporting of some of these indicators. Work's taking place at the moment to map the new corporate plan KPIs, and an internal session will be held with PGA members to go through this and receive your feedback on the new reporting templates, which will then pick up from Q1 against the new corporate plan. Members are asked to review this data and confirm assurance that performance is being effectively managed.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments? Councillor Stilts?
Yeah, hang on, let me go back. On the first page, page 231, we say that supporting our communities, Maldon's youth engagement programme is on track. But then when you go down to the KPIs, it tells us it's at risk. So which one of the two is it?
So the priority itself is on track with conditional elements. So that overview column shows the overall priority picture. And then the column that indicators at risk shows the specific KPIs that are at risk. So the youth engagement is marked as at risk in that table, and then within the data further down.
Thank you, Ms Hughes. Did you want to add anything, Mr Dodson, or has that covered it? Thank you.
No, it would have been nice to know where we're at risk and why we're at risk on that youth engagement, just to see if there was anything that we could have done to bring that in line. And the only other one was the planting of trees is online, but can you tell me where we've actually planted trees and how many?
Who can answer that? Mr Dodson?
I'm not sure.
So I haven't got the breakdown to hand, but that's information that we can provide.
So Ms Wheatley will supply further information. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions? Mr Smith?
Sorry, hope that come on. No. I should have said at the outset, by the way, thanks. I spent some time with Paul. Some time with Paul, and I was grateful to him for spending time with me on things. But it did strike me on going through this, and I've made the point before, I don't think our key areas are actually KPIs. And one of the big gaps, I think, is on training, because we have nothing about developing our team. Now, if you look at all the wisdom and research on building great organisations, it's about clarity of vision, mission and values, it's about a culture of celebration, and it's about team development. And I just wonder, because elsewhere in the report, there are indications that we are not getting where we should be on training. And I just wonder whether or not we ought to be looking at that. I don't know, and this is me not seeking to be inflammatory, but I don't know the quality of the training that's there. I don't know what management training is given. I don't know if our senior leadership team, everything I've seen is outstanding, whether they have help, mentors, development programs, and I just don't know. I don't know if every individual in the organisation has a template on training. I don't know the quality of that training, and I don't know if it features in the review process. So it's a concern that I don't think we have a sufficient emphasis on training and development for our team, or that we are creating an environment where they wish to learn.
Thank you, Mr Smith. We do have, well, there's two issues. One is team training and one is member training. We do have a member training group chaired by Councillor Hayward, but who would like to answer this one? Mr Dodson.
Yes, I mean, clearly this corporate performance report covers the delivery of the corporate plan, so is by its nature quite high level, so wouldn't necessarily go into that level of detail that Mr Smith's highlighted at that time. We do have training plans, but there's no point me sitting here saying that when you know it's the performance reporting that you're commenting on, not necessarily whether we actually do that. We will be going through the corporate plan for this year, and we also have a balanced scorecard, which goes into a bit more detail. I take on board the comments you've made, and we'll look at that within our review of reporting for the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dodson. Okay, anything else? Right, okay, so the recommendations can be found on page 231, and they are: 1, that members review the information as set out in this report and Appendix 1, with priority focus given to the strategic priority level performance, and 2, that members confirm they are assured through this review that corporate performance is being managed effectively. Do I have a seconder? Oh, Councillor Hughes, thank you. And can we agree it by assent? Agreed, thank you. So we move to item 10, which can be found on pages 273 to 282. Who's going to present this one?
Me again.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
So this report is an extract of the Corporate Risk Register as of the end of December 2024. There's been 3 changes between quarter 2 and quarter 3. So failure to maintain a 5-year housing land supply has increased in risk. Failure to plan and maintain balanced budget has decreased in risk. And additionally, a new risk has been raised, which is failure to engage and be prepared to be ready for any impact of local government review. The full risk register is set out at Appendix 1 to the report, with a summary of each risk as at the end of December. Currently, work is taking place to refresh the risk management policy, which is due for renewal in 2025. And as a result of this, a review of the risk scoring will also take place in the coming quarters. The committee is asked to review and challenge the information as set out, and through this, confirm assurance that risk is being managed effectively.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Do we have any questions or comments? No. In that case, I shall read out the recommendations, which are found on page 273. 1, that members review the Corporate Risk Register in Appendix 1 and provide comment and feedback for consideration. 2, that members review progress of the corporate risk mitigating actions in Appendix 2 and provide comment and feedback for consideration. 3, that members are assured through this review that corporate risk is being managed effectively. 4, that members challenge risk where the committee feels that the council's corporate goals may not be achieved. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes. We agree by assent. Agreed. Excellent. We're motoring through this. I feel my Lemsip and duvet getting closer than I feared. Right. Item 11 is the health and safety update, quarter 3, 24-25, which can be found on pages 283 to 290. Ms. Wheatley will present this, but I understand that Mr. Baccarini will be available to answer questions. So over to you, Ms. Wheatley.
Thank you, Chair. This health and safety report covers performance and compliance for quarter 3, which is the period from the 1st of October to the 31st of December 2024. It also includes updates relating to the BDO Health and Safety Audit Report that was presented to members at PGA Committee on the 5th of December. During this reporting period, there were 5 accidents and incidents, 5 hazards and 1 near miss reported. All accidents involved members of the public and 2 were of a more serious nature requiring paramedic assistance. Details for these incidents can be found under section 3.1.1 of the report. The number of accidents and near misses being reported demonstrates that officers continue to follow the correct procedure to notify their manager and submit the relevant details via SharePoint. The reported incidents are scrutinised through the monthly Health and Safety Managers Group, along with compliance in other areas, with monthly performance updates provided to the extended corporate leadership team. Following the recent health and safety audit, an action plan has been produced and good progress is being made to implement the BDO report recommendations. The actions are being monitored through the extended corporate leadership team, and PGA will continue to receive progress updates until such time all the actions have been resolved and closed. Members can find further details for the audit actions under sections 3.11 and 3.12. Our Corporate Health and Safety Manager, Mr. Baccarini, is available this evening to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Wheatley. So, are there any questions? Councillor Pratt?
Well, I just wonder that the trees in the Prom Park and other areas, sort of Riverside Park in Burnham, I wonder how diligent we have to be in assessing high winds which are likely to break branches, which are likely to fall on people walking. In my younger days, we would have just shrugged and said that's life. Now health and safety decides that we have a responsibility. And I'm not sure that we are actually able to check trees in excessive winds. I would just wonder how responsible we are. And the other one was the sampling of mud for shellfish. I find walking in mud extremely dangerous, especially when the Bradwell area, you park your boat, you try to walk ashore and you find you're up to your knees in mud. Is there not a method of using a small dory at almost low water to take these samples without having to walk on the mud? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Mr Baccarini?
Yes, thank you, Chair. With regards to the second question about walking in the mud, I would have to speak to our environmental health teams as to the requirement, because it is a statutory requirement, I understand, and then I believe there may be certain techniques that have to be employed in this sampling. We are exploring using a contractor to do this, because we know that people do fish for these shellfish commercially, and we're exploring if we can use some of their assets and expertise. But that's ongoing, so I can't give you a definite answer on that, but I can look into it with that team. The first question with regards to trees, I wasn't quite clear as to what the actual question was. It just, with respect, it was a statement about how accurate or how specific we have to be with regards to looking at the trees. If you could just clarify what the question was, I could try and address it a bit more correctly.
I just wonder how diligent we have to be with trees, and considering the high winds that we've been experiencing, I just think we're on a hiding for nothing. Can we actually be assured that our inspection will cover us?
Yes, there has been a couple of recent high-profile cases in the last year or so where members of the public have been seriously injured and even killed, where trees have fallen on members of the public in public parks. I think all we can do is use best practice and employ a defensible strategy in assessing those trees. For example, the HSC, they support having grading of areas, so you would assess trees that are frequented or where people are in those areas, and you would assess those more frequently than trees that are, say, in the middle of a copse and hardly get anyone going in. So as long as you've got a defensible strategy, I think that's all we can do.
Thank you, Mr Baccarini, and I believe Miss Green may be able to add some more detail.
Good evening, members. Yes, I certainly can. So we do have a regular programme of tree inspections, and as Mr Baccarini has said, that provides us with a good level of reassurance about the trees. And regarding how the winds, we've recently introduced a new working practice that gives very, very clear guidance to staff with regards to wind speed and whether or not we retain, for example, the Prom Park open to the public, and the steps we will take in when there are high winds and severe weather. So we have recently introduced some sort of further guidance in terms of that as well.
Thank you, Ms Green. Are you happy with that, Councillor Pratt? And Ms Wheatley has added something about the foreshore sampling. We have stopped foreshore sampling following the incident with the Maldon and have found an alternative way to collect samples without putting officers at risk. This change was implemented straight away. I have a comment to add which concerns the unacceptable behaviour. I was very saddened to hear that there were very substantial threats to our colleagues on reception, and I believe the individual concerned was the subject of a sort of police warning to the public. And I would like to ask if the staff have recovered from this, if they're okay and are still perhaps getting support.
If that's Chair, if that's directed to me, I would have to seek the comment from the manager of the person concerned. I know that there was follow up with them, but I haven't had an update recently on that case.
Right, thank you. And no one else add anything more to that? Well, I think members would certainly agree with me that we deplore this kind of behaviour and would want to prioritise the safety and well-being of our staff. Right, any other questions? In which case I'll move on to the recommendations on page.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Councillor Stills.
I'm just going to ask a couple of quick questions. One of them, we talk about a member of the public having fell from a bicycle and hit their head on a movable concrete bollard. Are they not our concrete bollards? Because in the report you say it's not a ride or as it's not caused by a MDC asset, but if they're ours, then it was. And the other one that I find quite disturbing is that weed killer was left out in a public accessible place. And do we not have a register for when people take out any chemicals, use them and put them back, or any way of noting that those chemicals have been put away safely under the COSH regulations?
Thank you, Councillor Stills. Good questions. Mr. Baccarini.
Sorry, with respect to the COSH, the substances, we have that the substance concerned lives in a locked store, and it was, I believe, in a break time. This doesn't excuse it, but I believe it was in a break time that it was left out. I think a member of staff was called away, and that was when it was discovered. In practice, that should have been taken when it was called away, but it wasn't, and it's been picked up for improvement. But there is a locked store, I can confirm that. With regards to the RIDOR, the non-RIDOR, I must be careful with what I say, but in that particular incident, we have reason to believe that the person injured was under the influence of alcohol. In fact, they admitted as much. So I think in this case, the cause was largely alcohol related, but nevertheless, the bollard was in a place where it may not have been, it could have been in a better place. It's for this, it's for debate really with the Parks team.
Councillor Stills would like to come back.
I'm going to come back on those. Basically, when I worked in the chemical industry, I would have been hung, drawn and quartered if I'd left chemicals out in a public area, even if I had been called away from my desk. So that's not an excuse. We should have a system of signing in and out chemicals that are being used. And in some cases, depending upon the chemical, the amount that we use in a swell. And as for the bollard, it's still our bollard. It doesn't matter whether the person was under the influence or not. We should still be looking at that risk in more detail.
Thank you, Councillor Stills, and perhaps we can get some more feedback on that bollard. Yes, I don't know if there's any other response you want to make on that one. And certainly the failure, I mean, there need to be lessons learned, don't there, from that slip up, because it could have quite serious consequences.
Yes, so Chair, with regards to the member of staff, obviously any discipline or sanction in that way in terms of staff members is not really down to me, that's down to the manager. They're all actually out of the loop in that regard. It's on our asset in terms of it's our park. The ownership, I would assume it's ours. We've moved the bollard since, but I don't know if it was left by another contractor, but our staff have moved it.
Right, thank you, Mr. Baccarini. Are there any final points? No, in which case I shall move to the recommendations, which are on page 283. 1, that members consider the accident and incident statistics and incidences of unacceptable behaviour reported. 2, that members consider progress of key health and safety themes as per section 3.2. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thompson, can we agree by assent? Agreed. Thank you very much. So now item 12, which is balance scorecard exceptions, which can be found on pages 291 to 314. Ms. Wheatley, is this you? Or Ms. Hughes? Thank you.
Yep, that's me. So this is a 6-monthly report which covers July to December 2024, and it shows our operational exceptions to performance. The table in section 3.2 of the report shows areas of underperformance, and that starts on page 292 of your agenda pack. Section 3.3 at the bottom of page 295 of your agenda pack shows areas of overperformance. And then 3.4 on page 296 shows areas where we're currently in tolerance, but we've marked it for closer monitoring as a leadership team. The report is presented for members to comment on exceptions and confirm assurance on the management of operational performance.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hughes. Any questions or comments? No? I think everyone seems happy with that, in which case we'll go through recommendations. 1, that the committee review and comment on exceptions to service reporting provided in this report. 2, that members note the additional performance in Appendix 1. 3, that members confirm they are assured through this review operational performance is being managed effectively. Can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Pratt. And can we agree by assent? Agreed. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 13, which is the annual governance statement actions update, which can be found on pages 315 to 318. So who is presenting this one?
Me again.
Ms. Hughes again. Thank you very much.
Yep. So in the 23-24 annual governance statement, we identified a number of actions to improve our governance arrangements over the coming year, and they're set out in section 3.5 of the report, which also gives a commentary as of quarter 3. Fields in grey have previously been reported as complete, and this quarter a further 2 actions have been marked as complete, which are to review the governance housekeeping matters through the Performance Governance and Audit Working Group, and to build on the member induction process and training plan in collaboration with the Member Training and Development Working Group. This report is provided for member update and challenge on these actions as agreed.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? No? Okay, so again, the recommendation is that the committee reviews the annual governance statements table and updates below and challenges where necessary. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Pratt, and agree by assent? Agreed. Excellent. Item 14. So this is the annual governance statement itself, which can be found on pages 319 to 334. So again, Ms. Hughes, presumably.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
So yeah, this is the annual governance statement for 24-25. So the annual governance statement is a key statutory document which has to be produced and appended to our statement of accounts. It comments on the governance arrangements that we've had in place for this financial year against both the SIPFA and SOLIS best practice. And additionally, for the 2nd year running, we also comment on Standard C of the Financial Management Code. Due to the committee dates and reporting cycles, we are bringing this forward slightly before the end of the financial year. We expect that the commentary will remain as stands, but if there are any material changes, we will review and bring them back to committee if necessary. Overall, the statement demonstrates that the Council is considered to have had the appropriate governance arrangements in place. However, we have also identified some actions for the coming year in line with best practice,
and those are identified in page 322 of your agenda pack. The statement also reflects on the achievements of the 24-25 financial year, and that's found at page 321 at the top of Appendix A. The committee is asked to approve the document and then monitor the action table that's been identified.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No? Okay, so recommendations. 1, that the committee approve the annual governance statement, Appendix A, and that this is appended to the statement of accounts. 2, that the Performance, Governance and Audit Committee monitors the progress of the action plan identified in the AGS annual governance statement through a quarterly report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hughes. Again, we agree by assent. Agreed. Excellent. Thank you very much. So we're now on the last item, which is item 15, annual review of financial regulations. Pages 335. So this will be dear to Mr. Cookson's heart. So hand over to him to take us through that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've just come to present to you the revised financial regulations for review and recommendation to Council. The financial regulations do need to be reviewed each year. In light of the new Chief Executive model that was brought in this year, we've had to revise the financial regulations to remove reference to specific directors and replace those with reference to the Chief Executive, Deputy Chief Executive and Chief Finance Officer. So there's been no other changes to the regulations apart from those title changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cookson. Mr. Smith. We'll have an eye for detail on this one, I'm sure.
Well, yes and no. And my apologies because I may have missed things. Generally, I thought the document read well, but I ended up with 3 issues. One is probably a detail, but I just may have missed it. On the cash control, I would have expected to see something about scrutiny of bank accounts and bank reconciliations as being part of the control process. I couldn't see it. Second one was on delegated authority, where there does seem to be a difference between the Strategy and Resource Committee, where certain items they are asked to review and make a recommendation to the Council, whereas when it comes to the audit, which is PGA, that is apparently is within the committee, rather than having a recommendation to Council. So I thought that was odd. The third issue is just looking at Strategy and Resource and PGA. I couldn't, you've got one that does budgets and administration and maintenance of records, another one that does the external audit. I mean, it just screamed out to me for, should there not be a joint working party between the 2 committees to deal with finance and risk? It just seemed to me a weird separation or segregation where presumably Strategy and Resource could make a policy which has an impact on your external audit. So they were the 3 issues. One's quite trivial, the other 2 are, I think, more fundamental. Thank you.
Mr. Cookson.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we do have the Finance Member Working Group, which has been initiated, which I believe is a cross-committee member group. So items relating to different things in terms of strategy and resources and performance and audit can be discussed at the Finance Member Group and therefore recommended to each individual committee. And sorry, which other item would you like a response on, sorry?
Well, just generally whether or not the segregation between those 2 committees makes sense. Where, to have one in the budget and the other one not involved in the budget, but ostensibly looking at performance. I mean, allied to that is, I'm not sure how the budget is understood, because I don't know if the budget is viewed as an authority to spend, which if it is, it shouldn't be. It's a financial representation of a plan, which resides within PGA. There's bits that cross over, and I think there ought to be a formal structure as to how they cross, if they cross. I mean, I just don't see why one group does the budget and the other group does the financial control.
Somebody's got there. That's better.
Yeah, no, mine stays on.
Yeah, the principle of the way the committees is set up is that the strategy is set by strategy and resources, including the budget linked to the strategy. So it's what are we going to do and how are we going to fund it? And that performance governance and audit oversees whether we've actually done what we said we would. In terms of the budget reports go to strategy and resources, but the audit is separated out into performance governance and audit. I mean, and the basis of that is set out within the constitution of the council. It's something we can discuss more when we meet separately, and I can clarify in a bit more detail as to why things sit where they are. But it is a matter of checks and balances, basically, so that one set of members are setting what we do and another set of members are checking that it's been done effectively.
Of course, we are unusual perhaps in not having a cabinet system, which I won't go into at this moment, but we have a committee system, and there can be problems with the committee system because recommendations can be made and then reversed, but again, we won't go into that now. Any other questions or comments? No, in that case, I shall read out the recommendation that the revised financial regulations at Appendix 1 be approved. I have a seconder, Councillor Thompson, and can we agree by send? Agreed. Members, I realise I swerved the matters arising in my eagerness, but I've had a look and I am satisfied that everything is taking place as it should do. So unless anyone has any urgent issues regarding matters arising, say it now or forever hold your peace. In that case, I think we will close the meeting. Thank you very much for your contributions this evening. I now draw the meeting to a close at 8:31 p.m. Thank you.